call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
What's up, guys? I'm going to do my prediction and breakdown for every fight at the upcoming UFC Fight Night Taira versus Park event taking place at the Apex. Give you guys my thoughts, breakdown on each of the fights. If you're looking for a little bit more of a breakdown, a little bit more detail, background on the fighters, things like that, check out my channel. I do an in-depth breakdown of every fight. So like and subscribe. Appreciate the love and comments I've been getting lately. And let's get into this. So first fight, Austin Bashi versus John Yannis. I'm going to go with Austin Bashi. He was supposed to be fighting Francis Marshall, who had to back out a few days ago. So John Yannis stepping in to take this fight. Was already training for a guy on August 22nd. So obviously going to be fighting about 3 weeks earlier against a different opponent, but he was in training camp. But I just think Austin Bashi is just a much better grappler, has much better experience, more finishing ability on the ground. John Yannis, he's coming off of some KOs, but it's against kind of lackluster regional guys. Been to a lot of split decisions, lost 3 fights, obviously has been finished by rear naked choke. So I think he holds probably the edge in power and just technical ability on the feet, maybe. But Austin Bashi, much better wrestler, jiu-jitsu black belt, tons of finishing potential on the ground. Coming off of his first loss against Christian Rodriguez, which is no shame. C-Rod has fraud checked a mini of up-and-coming contender. And Austin Bashi just couldn't get his takedowns going. And, if he can't get his takedowns going in this fight, I'll be concerned. But, John Yannis was, shown that he can be taken down by kind of these regional bottom barrel guys. So I think Austin Bashi is going to get the submission over John Yannis and get back into the win column. Moving on, Piera Rodriguez versus Ketlen Souza. Now, this fight's pretty close. Both these ladies, a lot of power on the feet, throw with bad intentions. They're not really pitter-patter, point-striking fighters. They're looking to do damage and be aggressive. But I'm going to go with Ketlen Souza and the underdog. I think she's got a little bit more firepower on the feet. She's a little bit tougher, a little bit grittier, fought the better competition. She can be taken down, and that's what Piera Rodriguez has kind of relied on in a lot of her fights, is, being gritty on the feet, throwing good punches, getting some respect, but then getting her takedowns, but getting takedowns against lesser opponents, and not really much of a submission threat on the ground as much as just positional control and landing damage. And, even in her fights against like Sam Hughes, she wasn't able to do a lot with the takedowns. Sam Hughes was able to kind of bounce right back up, and it seems like whenever she fights somebody with a little bit of talent, a little bit of grappling ability, and Jillian Robertson, she's kind of getting dominated on the ground. Has a win over Josephine Knudsen in her most recent outing, but Josephine Knudsen's more of a striker, can't defend a takedown to save her life, and she was able to just kind of out-grapple her, whereas Ketlen Souza, I think she's very well-rounded, power on the feet, technical. I think she'll be able to defend the takedowns a little bit better if she does get taken down. She has a good ability to scramble back up to her feet, like we saw in her fight with Marnik Mann and Angela Hill most recently. And she's got the ability to crack on the feet. She knocked Yasmin Uribe on the ground, choked her out. Whereas Piera Rodriguez, the only time I've really ever seen her hurt somebody on the feet is, I guess, she dropped Josephine Knudsen early, but then against Carnellosi it was a front teep kick to the head. So I would give Ketlen Souza the advantage on the feet in terms of pure firepower. Tons of pressure on as well, mixes up her targets, and at times Piera Rodriguez likes to kind of fight on the back foot. And I think if you're going to allow Ketlen Souza to be first and be offensive and be the one walking forward and dictating the pace, I think that she's going to be able to land a lot of her strikes and keeping Rodriguez on her heels. I think she's going to kind of help to prevent the takedowns. And Ketlen Souza, she does a good job. She can be taken down, but a lot of times, she'll dig underhooks and she'll throw elbows and knees to the body to kind of deter you from shooting. So I'm going to go with Piera Rodriguez, even though Ketlen Souza, she can be finished. She's been TKO'd twice, body kicks and leg kicks, been subbed a couple times, and then lost the split decision in her last fight with Angela Hill. But that was a close fight. Angela Hill is very underrated. A lot of split decisions haven't gone her way. Otherwise, she'd have a much better record and be a little bit higher up in the rankings. But I'm going to go with Ketlen Souza in this one as an underdog. I think she'll be able to sprawl and brawl and either get the KO or win the decision. Moving on, Felipe Bunes versus Rafael Estevam. Now, both of these guys, a lot of potential. Felipe Bunes, not the best record at 14-7, but if you look back through his record, he's one of those guys. dude from Brazil flying over to Chechnya several times to fight Russians, to fight the hometown kids. Fights aren't going his way, but he's having a lot of success over there, arguably winning a few of those fights. Lost to Jussier Formiga, who's also very good. He's only losing to champs, title contenders, double champs, and Henry Cejudo. So other than that, Joshua Van had a good showing of himself against Joshua Van, got a takedown on him, was holding his own on the feet until he wasn't. But no shame in that. We know how good Joshua Van is now. And coming off of an armbar win over Jose Johnson. So very impressive. But Rafael Estevam, also a jiu-jitsu black belt. Probably not as good of a striker as Felipe Bunes, but he has a great ability to get takedowns and control guys on the ground. And I think that's what will happen in this one. Felipe Bunes on the regional scene, his Achilles heel has been getting taken down. And that's been kind of how he loses a lot of fights. And normally I would think with his crafty jiu-jitsu off his back, he has a really good submission game from his back, open guard, jiu-jitsu transitions. I just don't think he'll be able to utilize that against somebody as good and crafty and as strong as Estevam, who very good wrestler. I think he's going to be the stronger guy, going to be the younger guy, barely into his prime, and I think he's going to have the jiu-jitsu ability to kind of nullify Felipe Bunes, swiveling his hips, looking for sweeps and things like that. So if Bunes can defend the takedowns, I think he is the better striker on the feet. He's got very crispy Muay Thai, but I just don't see that happening. I don't think that he's going to be able to keep it on the feet. Estevan's going to be pushing forward, looking to get his takedowns. Estevam is taking this on short notice. Bunes is supposed to be fighting Andrey Lima, which is just an awful matchup for anybody. I think Andrey Lima is, the future of the division, but Felipe Bunes is very good, very well-rounded, dangerous everywhere. Reminds me of kind of like a flyweight Charles Oliveira, but getting up there in age. And just the weakness in his game is his takedown defense, and that's what Rafael Estevam does very well, in allowing him to go 13-0 in his career. Wins over Charles Johnson, Jesus Aguilar. Aguilar's very underrated. Charles Johnson's very good, and then has a lot of wins on the regional scene against guys with really good records. So I think Rafael Estevam is going to be able to stay safe on the feet, get his takedowns, and do enough to win rounds. I don't think he'll sub Felipe Bunes, but I think he'll control him en route to getting a decision win. Next up, Rodolfo Vieira versus Tresean Gore. Rodolfo Vieira, he's like a 4-time IBJJF Jiu-Jitsu winner, obviously a very high-level black belt. Been kind of 50-50 in the UFC, coming off of a loss to Andrey Petroski in a very kind of lackluster fight, I would say. They're both primarily grapplers with not the best striking, and it took place on the feet, so it was just kind of a slow-paced fight. But before that, got the arm triangle choke over arm of Petrosian, where he showed, improved cardio, some good calf kicks. I feel like his stand-up is progressively getting better. Was rocked bad by Cody Brundage before that, and then got the finish. Couldn't get the takedowns over Chris Curtis and lost that decision. Beat Dustin Stoltzfus, gassed against Anthony Hernandez. So Vieira's just the guy. He's like, if you can't get his takedowns and you're good on the feet, you're probably going to lose. And if you can push a high face and really get him to have to work, there's a good chance that he's going to gas. And if you can keep it on the feet, like we saw with the Andrey Petroski fight, there's a good chance that you're going to either outpoint him and you're going to win. So if he can't get his takedowns, he's probably going to lose this fight. And Tresean Gore is a big dude. He's a very good wrestler. Powerful on the feet, has a decent chin, even though he was kind of clipped by Tulio. He did get knocked out by Cody Brundage, but he's no slouch with the jiu-jitsu either. He's a purple belt. It's got a lot of guillotine chokes, dangerous guillotine chokes, can finish you with power on the feet. He hurt Tulio in his last fight, kind of clipped him. So I'm going to go with Tresean Gore. I think that he can probably defend the takedowns, land the better shots against Rodolfo Vieira, get respect on the feet. Vieira's going to have to close the distance to get in close. And Tresean Gore, very powerful guy, kind of a one-and-done fighter. Throws a good right hand, but he's kind of just a one-and-done striker. Can be hit and does leave openings on the feet, but I don't think Vieira is the type of guy that's going to be able to chin him or to find his chin. He did take tons of damage in his last fight against Marco Tulio, but Tulio's very good, and he had his moments in that fight, and he was never deterred in that fight, was constantly pushing forward regardless of the pace that was getting put on him. And the damage that he was taking, he was in it looking to throw back and looking to win that fight. And his cardio looked really good too. And that's the level of cardio that you need to beat somebody like Vieira. You know, if you can push a high pace, put a lot of volume out there, grapple, and still be, you know, looking to get the finish at the end of the second round, third round, and that's where we see Vieira usually start to fade and gas out. So I'm gonna go with Tresean Gore against Rodolfo Vieira, who getting up there in age, 35, going to be 36 in a few months. You know, if he can't get the takedowns, I think Tresean Gore is going to chin him on the feet. So I'm going to go Tresean Gore to get the win as an underdog. Rinya Nakamura takes on Nathan Fletcher. You know, Rinya Nakamura was a huge prospect before he ran into Muin and Gafarov, who I think is underrated. I think Muin Gafarov is pretty good. He's got a lot of experience, very well-rounded. But Rinya Nakamura got hurt a few times in that fight. Couldn't get his takedowns. Just wasn't a very good look. Before that, went to a decision with Carlos Vera, went to a decision with Fernie Garcia, and in hindsight, like, these guys just aren't that good. You should be finishing these guys. You know, he's got power on the feet, Olympic hopeful wrestler. You would just think that he's got the size and physicality and ability to, you know, just beat these guys up, and we're just not seeing it. And Nathan Fletcher, coming off of a loss to Kalin Loughran, which isn't the best look. Had an arm triangle choke over Zigomatas Ramaska, but he can be taken down. You know, he was getting taken down by Kalin Loughran, was getting taken down by Colin Oakley on The Ultimate Fighter. So I just think, you know, I think Rinya Nakamura will be able to kind of dictate where this fight takes place. If he's having success and landing some bombs on the feet, he'll keep it there. If not, I think he'll have the ability to take down Nathan Fletcher and do damage there. But Nathan Fletcher, you know, very underrated. Spent his entire career, including a lot of his amateur career, in Cage Warriors. So not fighting, you know, bums, but he can be finished. Was finished in Cage Warriors, coming off of two losses, one win. So 1-2 in his last 3. He has a lot of submission ability. You know, he's decent on the feet. But I just think, I think Rinya Nakamura, I think he'll use his wrestling in this one. He didn't really use it as much in his last fight against Muin Gafarov as much as he should. But, you know, Nathan Fletcher is a live dog. He's gritty, tenacious. He's good everywhere. And I think that he has, you know, has the ability to again, fraud check Rinya Nakamura, who I'm still not sold on. But I just think on paper, the dude should have what it takes to win rounds against somebody like Nathan Fletcher and get the win. Moving on, Nick Klein versus Andrey Pulyaev. Now, I'm gonna be honest. I think both of these guys don't belong in the UFC. Nick Klein had that win on Dana White's Contender Series, got the takedown and rear naked choke immediately, and they threw him to the wolves against Mansour Abdul Malik. Had some success on that fight. You know, had me worried. He was such a huge favorite. What was he? Yeah, he was plus 750 underdog. Had that spinning back fist that rocked him. Got a takedown. But after that was just kind of thrown to the ground and beat on by Abdul Malik in the second round, and he just kind of wilted, kind of crumbled under the pressure of Malik turning his back. Like, he's just one of those guys on the feet. He just looks like he's cowering, like he's so afraid to engage because he's afraid to get hit. And it's like, dude, you are in a cage fight. Like, if you're gonna, you know, wince and cower from these guys, like, I can't pick you. And Andrey Pulyaev, 9-3. 3-5 as an amateur, you know, can be TKO'd, was kind of just beaten up, walking back, backpedaling, not really throwing a lot of volume in this last fight against Christian Leroy Duncan. Looked really good on Dana White's Contender Series against Liam Anderson. Was kind of putting on a clinic with him and showing good takedown defense, but previously in his career, he has shown an ability to get taken down. But in that fight, Liam Anderson defended the takedowns, was even able to defend the takedowns against Christian Leroy Duncan. So I think he'll be able to do well in this fight. Defend takedowns, keep it at range, his range. He's going to be the taller guy, lankier guy, light years ahead of Nick Klein on the feet. So I think he'll piece apart Nick Klein, who's going to just be desperately shooting for takedowns. And while doing so, eating knees, eating elbows in the clinch. Maybe he gets a few takedowns and Andrey Pulyaev gets back up to his feet. But every round starts on the feet. And I think Pulyaev is just going to kind of piece him up at range. Pulyaev he's got 78.5 inch reach, 6'4", 78.5 inch reach. Nick Klein, 6'1", 77.5 inch reach. So not going to have a crazy length advantage, but I definitely think Pulyaev is going to be the much better striker and be able to do damage as Nick Klein's coming in to get takedowns and just kind of keeping the fight on the feet and beating him up there. Danny Silva takes on Kevin Vallejos. Danny Silva's been kind of underwhelming, you know. Split decision over Lucas Almeida, split decision over Josh Kulabau. Kulabau was having a lot of success against him in that fight, but you know, he's a good boxer, really good hand speed, trains with Olympic level boxers. He's a Marcos Hua Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so he has all the skills to be a force in the division. He's tough, good leg kicks, good pressure, really good takedown defense. But I think this fight's going to take place on the feet, and I think Kevin Vallejos is just a savage. I think he's a problem in this division. I think he can compete with, you know, top 10, top 15 right now. 15-1. Only loss was to Gene Silva on the Contender Series, where he went to a decision with him. You know, and Gene Silva is just a monster. He's finishing everybody he's fighting, doing it with aura. And I had a very good fight with Gene Silva. Since then, he's went on a 4-fight winning streak, all by finish. Rear naked choke, TKO, 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 taking on Danny Silva. So Kevin Vallejos, very skilled, strong low kicks, very fast hands, has really good power, rips to the body very well, mixing up the targets, very crisp boxing combinations, really good slips and counters. I think he was like a 3-weight champion on the regional scene. So I think this dude's got a bright future. I think Danny Silva's pathway to victory here is get respect on the feet, fast combos, shoot takedowns. But I think Kevin Vallejos is just a little bit better, has a little bit more finishing potential. He's younger at 23, so he's only going to be getting drastically better every time we see him. So I'm going to go with Kevin Vallejos to get this one done by KO, TKO. Neil Magny takes on Eligeu Zaleski dos Santos. I'm going with Zaleski dos Santos. Tons of experience, just like Neil Magny. I think he's better overall. I think he's got more finishing potential everywhere. Jiu-Jitsu black belt, power on the feet. Coming off of the loss to Chidi Njokwani back in March, you know. Take a little bit of time off. I get it. He's 38 though, trying to hop back in there. But both these guys fairly older, you know. Neil Magny is going to be 38 in 4 days. So both of these guys, 38 years old, tons of experience. Haven't had the best luck as of late. Neil Magny getting finished by KO in his last 2 fights, but it's against Carlos Prates and Michael Morales, probably 2 of the biggest prospects at welterweight so far. Good win over Mike Malott, lost to Ian Gary. So, you know, Neil Magny, if he can't get this fight to the ground or push you up against the cage and work in the clinch, he's going to lose. He's going to get knocked out. And Eligeu Zaleski, he looked good against Zach Scroggin, getting the KO. Went to a decision with Randy Brown, majority with Renat Fakhretdinov. Like, these are high-level guys. It's a win over Benoit Saint Denis a few years ago. Lost a split decision to Muslim Salikov. We saw how good he was. Just knocking out Carlos Leal. Had a knockout over Kenan Song before that. So still having really gritty performances. Even though he is 38 and losing to Chidi Njokwani. I think Chidi Njokwani is very good. He's a very good striker, so no shame in that. But Eligeu, I think he's going to be able to keep this fight on the feet. If it does go to the ground, I think he's got the grappling ability in jiu-jitsu to stay safe and you know, get back up to his feet. Got a 68% takedown defense, so not awful. Neil Magny's not the biggest double leg guy in the world to kind of blast through him and get him. He is going to be taller at 6'3" with an 80-inch reach versus Zaleski 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. So he'll be at a 7-inch reach disadvantage, but he is the better striker. I think he's going to be able to manage the distance a little bit better. Not concerned about Magny using that reach advantage to beat him up on the feet. So I'm going to go with Zaleski to get this one done. I think he can get the finish over Neil Magny. Karol Rosa versus Nora Cornolle. Now this is a close fight. You know, Karol Rosa completely disappointed me in her last fight with Eileen Perez. Closer than I thought when I rewatched it, but was getting taken down. Couldn't really get anything going on the feet. The fight before that just battered Pani Kianzad on the feet, beating her legs up. Had a fight of the year contender against Irene Aldana before that. So Nora Cornolle, she is like a 5-time French Muay Thai champion, but I just don't think she's going to be able to put pause on Karol Rosa the way that somebody like Irene Aldana can. You know, Karol Rosa, she is a jiu-jitsu black belt as well. No-gi champ. Very good on the feet. She's calm, technical. Sometimes she doesn't do enough. She's just like, she's too happy to just kind of sit back and be defensive and technical. She does have really good fast strikes, really hard leg kicks. Like I said, just I wish she would take chances a little bit more, and you know, take some risk, up the tempo to win these rounds and put some hurting on some of these ladies. But I'm gonna go with Karol Rosa. I think she's just better everywhere than Nora Cornolle. I think she's better on the ground. Nora Cornolle, she can be taken down. She's got like 50% takedown defense, but she does have good scrambles, good abilities to reverse position on bottom. But when I look at the opponents that she's doing that against, it's Haley Cowan, you know, Melissa Mullins, Jocelyn Edwards. She's in these positions where she's having success scrambling and getting out of submissions against these other fighters that I think are lower level compared to Karol Rosa. I think if Karol Rosa gets her to the ground, she's not letting her up. She's going to be doing damage. She's going to be passing guard, ground and pound, looking for submissions. If she gets the rear naked choke on Nora Cornolle the way that Jocelyn Edwards does, like, she's ending the fight. So Nora Cornolle, she's not going to be able to make the mistakes that she's been able to make in the past against some of these other fighters. You know, getting taken down by Haley Cowan, taken down by Melissa Mullins, Jocelyn Edwards several times. I don't know if Karol Rosa is necessarily going to be shooting takedowns, but I think she can definitely dictate where this fight takes place, batter her legs, and I just think she's going to be a little bit measured, better defensively, more well-rounded, has much more MMA experience. She can mix it up a little bit better, deal with the striking coming her way from Cornolle. It's nothing that she's never seen before, and I just think she'll be better wherever the fight goes. She's younger, 30 years old. You know, Nora Cornolle, 35. Going to be 36 in December, so I'm gonna go Karol Rosa to get this one done. I think she can do enough on the feet, maybe mix it up with some takedowns to get the decision. Estevam Ribovic versus Elvis Brenner. Now this could be fight of the night here, because both of these guys love to get into wars. They're very tough, and they're both very well-rounded, very skilled. Estevam Ribovic, high volume guy, tons of potential on the feet to put you away. Great striking, good combos, good kicks. We saw that knockout that he had over Terrence McKinney. Just mixes up the targets very well, fights at a really high pace, has a very high strikes landed per minute average, switches stances, just very crafty on the feet. Good chin, we saw that against Zellhuber. Not the best takedown defense though. 63% takedown defense, which is a concern against Elvis Brenner, who is the much better grappler on paper. You know, he's a shoot to box Diego Lima guy. So that forward aggressive style, has good jiu-jitsu, very aggressive, kind of a spazzy style on the feet, but decent power, will switch stances as well. We saw that face plant KO he had over Kenan Chuchevsky, but he can be backed up and pressured. So I think if this fight stays on the feet, I think Estevam Ribovic is going to get this one done. I think he's going to beat him up on the feet. Elvis Brenner has shown an ability or propensity to get hurt in fights. He was hurt in the Guram Kutateledze fight before he turned that around and got the finish. Was hurt against Miktabek Oralbai, got hurt against Joel Alvarez and finished in that fight. He is a very big submission threat. He's been a jiu-jitsu black belt since he was like 15, has tons of submission wins, has had some success in some of his fights that he lost against Miktabek Oralbai with just grappling and having good clinch work in those fights, but he's just too inconsistent for me. And if you're able to get hurt as much as we've seen him get hurt, granted it's against really good competition, I just can't trust you with the firepower coming your way against somebody like Estevam Ribovic, who, you know, like I said, puts tons of volume out there, is very technical, has had a lot of really good performances. His last fight, you know, coming off of a split decision to Nasser Haqparast, you can argue he won that fight, but you know, my main concern with Ribovic is just getting taken down. But we saw in the Loic Radzhabov fight, he was getting taken down but able to get back up to his feet. So I think if he does get taken down by Elvis Brenner, he'll be able to, you know, stay safe, get back up to his feet, and keep putting hands on Elvis Brenner. So I'm gonna go with Estevam Ribovic to get this one done. Has good cardio. I think this should be much closer odds, honestly, than they are. Minus 285 for Ribovic, just because I think Brenner is underrated. And like I said, his losses are to really good guys, Gabriel Santos, Miktabek Oralbai, and Yoel Alvarez. But Brenner hasn't fought in a year, and I just trust Ribovic. I trust his skills and his ability on the feet and his chin versus Elvis Brenner. So Chris Duncan versus Mateusz Rebecki. I'm going to go with Mateus Rebecki, and I'm shocked that the odds are -200 for him. I feel like it should be at least a -400. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, 2-time ADCC gold medalist, just a tree stump of a dude, just solid, very strong for the division, muscled up, very powerful, tons of power on the feet, throws with bad intentions, has a really good 1-2, good uppercut. Sometimes he doesn't mix it up, he kind of just spams that combination, but feints really well into the pocket to kind of throw guys off, and he still has a lot of success with it, throwing the 1-2 over and over. Really good head movement, hard to find on the feet, feints in and out really well, to where he's hard to kind of track down and land on the chin. Really good leg kicks, was battering Luke Radzhabov in his fight with him, which kind of set up the KO because the dude could barely move anymore. And tons of experience, 20-2. Only loss was to Diego Ferreira a couple fights ago, and before that his only professional loss was in 2014. Whereas Chris Duncan, I just feel like a lot of his wins are fluky, like Manuel Torres, he had the win over Manuel Torres, but I don't know how Manuel Torres took him down twice and eventually got the rear naked choke on him. Balaji was tagging him on the feet before Balaji just kind of stuck his head into a guillotine. Jordan Buchinek, he was able to rock him and then control him, but then Jordan Buchinek having success on the feet, shoots a takedown for some reason, gives him his neck again. So his last 2 wins by choke were just kind of they were just kind of given to him, in my opinion, and he can be hurt. He was getting hurt by Balaji, got hurt obviously by Charlie Campbell in that fight on Dana White's Contender Series, where he had the comeback right hand after he was rocked badly. He was knocked out by Makashlev Borshev. So it's like, if you're getting hit and hurt this bad by these other guys, like, I imagine Rebecki's gonna be able to find your chin and get you out of there, or get the submission over you, just because you've shown that you can be rear naked choked. And Rebecki has very high level jiu-jitsu. My only knock on Rebecki is his cardio, but if you look through his career, the only time he's ever like gassing out against guys is when it's like a finishing sequence. It's when he's putting tons of volume out there to get somebody out of there and they last, and then he's kind of tired after the fact. Like we saw that against Diego Ferreira, was hurting him bad, and then eventually started to gas out as Diego Ferreira was still there, firing back, making him work. And then Mikdebek Oralbai, he still won that fight, but again was hurting Mikdebek, putting a lot of energy and gas out there to get the finishing, couldn't get it done. So I just think my main thing with this is, I don't think Chris Duncan is tough enough to withstand the onslaught coming his way from Rebecki. Like, I think if Rebecki gets him hurt, he's going to get him out of there. Whereas I don't think that Chris Duncan's going to be able to weather the storm to the point where Rebecki gets tired, if that makes sense. I think Rebecki, if he gets him hurt, he can finish him on the feet, he can finish him on the ground. I just think he's overall much better, and just more finishing potential and just more skilled everywhere. So I'm going to go with Rebecki to get this one done by finish. Again, jiu-jitsu black belt, Chris Duncan, purple belt. Both of them have power in the hands, but Rebecki's just been a little bit more proven in the past, whereas Chris Duncan can be finished. He's very kind of iffy, in my opinion, hasn't had the best performances, and had some fluky wins. So I'm going to go with Rebecki to get this one done. And to the main event, Tatsuro Taira versus Hyun Sung Park. So Tatsuro Taira is supposed to be fighting Amir Albazi, who had to pull out. I'm not sure why. I think it was like he couldn't get medically cleared. I know that he had like some type of heart surgery and then had like a neck fusion before that. So not sure why he couldn't fight, but Hyun Sung Park is taking this fight on very short notice. I don't remember if he was training to take on Steve Erceg August 9th, but even that was like a late replacement. I think Steve Erceg was supposed to be fighting Alex Perez or something, and Alex Perez had to pull out. So he was training, but again, not a full camp the way that Taira was. Hyun Sung Park, young dude. They're going to be about the same size. Tatsuro Taira is going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. Hyun Sung Park undefeated, 10-0, 5-0 in the UFC. I think all of his wins but one are by finish. KOs, rear naked chokes, very light on his feet. Chris Striker, Tatsuro Taira, clean striker, but more of a grappler, kind of uses his striking to open up his takedowns, even though he did get a TKO over Carlos Hernandez. But good calf kicks, like I said, really good jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and like an uncanny ability to take the back. It has really good scrambles, really good submissions. If he gets hurt or gets tired, he can resort to a pulling guard or just looking to get a hold of somebody to stay safe. Doesn't have the best takedown defense, decent takedowns, 44% takedown control or takedown accuracy. Can be hit, was getting hurt and tagged on the feet against Royval in his last fight. Was dropped by Edgar Chairez in their fight before that, and just looked like he was kind of getting tired in the fight with Royval, which is no shame in that. Royval is very good, one of the best in the world at flyweight. But I'm gonna go with Hyun Sung Park in this one. He's got tons of momentum. I think he's very skilled. I think he's more well-rounded than Taira. Taira's very good on the ground, but I would give the stand-up advantage to Hyun Sung Park. He's light on his feet, very crispy striker, fast combos, moves very well, manages the distance well, lands good knees in the clinch when guys are shooting takedowns, very physically strong. I think he's going to be the bigger, more physically strong guy in this fight. He's got good leg kicks, good body kicks to kind of keep Taira at range, mixes up the targets very well to the body, to the head, good counters as well on the back foot, and has really good forward pressure that I think he's going to utilize in this fight to kind of keep Taira moving back and to kind of help prevent the shots that are coming his way. He has good ground control as well, good ground and pound, and good jiu-jitsu as well. So I think that if he does get taken down, he'll have the strength and size advantage. He'll have the skill ability to kind of stay safe and get back up to his feet, or to just not get submitted and controlled. But he does have 100% takedown defense. So who knows if Taira can even get him down. I think Taira, if there's one thing I will say about this fight, is Taira's going to have probably a cardio advantage, which is good considering it's a 5-round fight, and he's the one who's had 5-round experience, just coming off of a very back and forth fight with Brandon Royval for 5 rounds. But he did, lose that fight. He had his moments, but he had his moments where he didn't look very good. He had his moments where he was gassing. So who's to say that when he comes up against Park, who's able to kind of negate the things that he does well, make him work, beat him up on the feet, who's to say that he doesn't gas out against Hyun Sung Park. But I am concerned about Park's gas tank because, again, Taira can't push a high pace, can make you fight everywhere, kind of tire you out. He was training for this fight, was training for 5 rounds. Hyun Sung Park was training for a 3-round short notice fight against a completely different opponent. So those are things that we got to take into consideration. But I like Park, undefeated, a lot of potential. He's 29, Tatsuro Taira 25, so just entering his prime. Hasn't fought the level competition that Taira has. Not near the level of competition. Taira, Brandon Royval, Alex Perez, Edgar Chairez, Jesus Aguilar, these are good fighters. But I got a feeling that Hyun Sung Park, coming in as the underdog, is going to be able to just edge out Taira wherever this fight goes. Hold his own in the grappling transitions, defend the takedowns, edge him on the feet, land in the bigger shots, and get a decision win in this one. So appreciate you guys watching. Again, if you want a little bit more detailed breakdown of the fights, a little bit more of my thought process on what these guys do well, what they don't do well, and why I'm picking each one, check out my channel. Got individual breakdowns for every fight. Like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys watching. Thanks.